Hello everyone, this is Lam here. In today's video, I want to compare the Fuji X-T3 to the X-T20. Now, for many of you who actually watch the specs, you may think, is this even a comparison video? Because in every way, the X-T3 is going to blow out the X-T20, and you are correct. I would not actually say anything against that. But what I would say is that $1,500 plus a lens, which at least is $150 is a lot of money. And for a lot of people, they might not have the budget to do that. If you have to go with an older generation of XT series cameras, do they compare well with the X-T3? So that's really the main comparison line that we're going to be looking at today. The reason why I chose the X-T20 is because when I look through the lineup, I think this is the best in terms of budget, but it offers almost all of the features that you really want. Now, there will be some compromises to the features, but I think enough of them are there to be really able to compete with the X-T3. So let's go ahead and jump into this. The first question to ask is, if you can afford either system, is there any real reason why you should go with the X-T20? And my answer to that is no. I think the X-T3 is just such a capable system that even if you really needed a small and compact feature, I still would recommend going with the X-T3 because of the focusing system. It's so good nowadays. It's really vastly improved over to the X-T20, plus that joystick in the back makes it really easy to use. I think you'll just like the feature set a whole lot more on the X-T3 than over the X-T20, and it's just worth the extra upgrade, the extra bulk that you have to carry around. And it's really not too much more, but there is a size difference. There's definitely a size difference between these two. But I would always choose the X-T3 when it comes to being able to afford both systems. Now, having said all of that, if you do go with an X-T20 because for whatever reason the X-T3 just doesn't fit in your budget, or you just don't want to get an X-T3, the entry level of the X-T20, is it really worth it at this point? And I will break it down into several things. The first thing is the image coming out of this camera. So what I find is that I am perfectly happy with taking pictures on both the X-T3 and the X-T20. In fact, on the YouTube right now, all of my screenshots, all of my thumbnails for my YouTube videos usually comes from the X-T20, because the X-H1, I have it set up for video, dedicated video here at the studio. It's a little cumbersome to use for pictures. The X-T3, there is no RAW support in Lightroom, so that leaves it to the X-T20. And when I take pictures with the X-T20, I don't really feel like I'm losing picture quality. It's just a smaller body. There are some limitations with how you focus with it, but overall, I'm still very happy with the images. It's not like I feel like my images are suffering because I'm taking it with an X-T20. So overall, I'm very happy with the image systems. Let's talk a little bit about the focus system. This is where it kind of falls apart a little bit. The focusing system suffers a little bit in that it doesn't have a joystick. There is limited number of focus points, and it's not going to do super well in continuous focus. It'll do well enough, but if you're doing stuff with sports, then it's going to suffer a little bit. You're going to end up with more pictures that you can't use. For a camera that's this old, it still does a very nice job. Now, if you do like using the viewfinder like me, you will find that the viewfinder on the X-T20 is a bit small, so you might struggle with that a little bit. Plus the eye cup's a little bit hard, so you might want that replaced. But overall, it's still a very usable camera. So for a picture taking experience, I still think you're going to enjoy this very much. And also, I think you will fall in love with the size, because this is the vlogging size that I would love to carry around. If they can fit most of what the X-T3 into the X-T20, so the next generation, which is the X-T30, I would definitely buy that because I love this form factor. This is just an amazing form factor to carry around with you. I really enjoy carrying around my X-T20, and when I have moved up to the X-T3, I do notice the additional bulk, but it's not too bad, but I do like the size of it. Now let's go ahead and talk about video. So one of the reasons why the benchmark for me is the X-T20 is because of the video features. It does 4K and it does 1080p, and it does those very well. Now there are a lot of limitations to the X-T20 when it comes to video, and you're really going to have to work around them, but it's actually a great learning lesson. The first one is that the face detect mode isn't very good, so you're probably going to have to either choose manual focus or suffer through a lot of hunting with continuous focus. What I would say to you on this, especially for people that are just starting to film, is that learning how to use manual focus is one of the essential skills to actually being a good videographer. So I would actually go ahead and just learn that first, just suffer through that pain a little bit. You'll be amazed at what you can do with manual focus. There is a lot of great slow motion images that I use that is all in manual focus, and the only way that it stays sharp throughout that entire slow motion is because it was in manual focus. You will learn how to use it, and it is a great skill to have, and it will never diminish over time because it's always good to be in full control of your focus when you're filming something. So I know autofocus is a big thing nowadays and it's improving every year, but learning how to use manual focus is definitely a great skill to have because a lot of stuff that's filmed at the high end is through manual focus, and being able to focus pull, super useful skill. So that is one reason why I think having X-T20 and learning how to use manual focus isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know I'm sugarcoating it a little bit, but it's well worth it. I know for a fact that I use the autofocus system on the X-T3 all the time, and it makes life easy. I will not doubt that with you. If you absolutely need the autofocus system, then the system that you really want to get and save up for is the X-T3, because the face detect, the autofocus, the continuous focus, it works really well. It is an amazing machine when it comes to autofocus. But if you're willing to suffer through manual focus and a little trial and error, the X-T20 will still serve you very well. The next thing I would want to say for the X-T20 is that in 4K mode, it only records up to 10 minutes, whereas you can record up to 30 minutes with the X-T3. Generally speaking, that's not a problem because most people don't record continuously for 10 minutes. You know, even me, I will take snippets and then stitch them all together. So that's generally not an issue. Now, what is the bigger issue is that it does tend to overheat a little bit if you continuously roll on 4K. So I would say this is actually a very bad camera if you need to continuously shoot in 4K. I don't think I've ever had the issue in 1080, so I don't think 1080 is a problem, but I know 4K is a problem. So that's something to watch out for if you actually need to shoot continuously. But for vlogging purposes like this, it's never been an issue. And I had plenty of moments where I relied on the X-T20 as my main camera because either the X-T3 or the X-H1 is in front of the camera or it's being used for other purposes. So I really don't have a problem with having the X-T20 as a main camera for a short period of time. Now, there is one limitation in terms of film simulation. The X-T3 and the X-H1 both have Eterna as a film simulation. In the X-T20, it does not. That's the reason why I stay away from that film simulation, is because if I ever had to use the X-T20 as one of my cameras to record in, I don't really want to choose a film simulation that isn't actually on the X-T20. One of the reasons why I do not recommend the X-A5 or the X-T100 is because the lack of 4K. And that's really important to me because even after I outgrow this camera, say I finally move up to an X-T3, I always want to have a secondary body, and this is actually a great portable system to be your secondary body because it's so small, yet it's capable enough to where in a pinch it can fill in for your main camera, and that's what I like to do. I have a small camera bag that I carry with me, and I carry both the X-T3 and the X-T20 with me because I just like having two camera systems, and plus they're so small, which is the reason why I go with APS-C, that I can carry both camera bodies, and I really don't feel the bulk in it. It still actually fits into a nice small camera bag, so that's something that I really love doing. So you can think of this as a long-term investment because even after you've upgraded, you can still keep this around as a B cam and it will still serve the purpose really well, which is what I do. This is the reason why I like having multiple camera bodies around. And trust me, if you do recording a lot or do a lot of pictures, having a secondary camera body with you is going to be super useful to you. So if you're a person on a budget and I have convinced you at looking at an X-T20, there's a few things that I would want to mention. Number one, I think you should only buy this camera body used. It is a very old camera body at this point, and there are a lot of good deals on this camera body. I was just looking it up before making this video. You can get this camera body for well under $600. You buy a used lens, say like a 16 to 50, that's around $150, $170. I would go to a trusted source, either a B&H, an Adorama, or some of the reputable third-party used camera websites. The reason why I say that is that they usually have a policy where you can try out the equipment for a couple of days or maybe even 30 days, and then if you find anything wrong with it, you can always return it. I generally don't have to use that feature, but when it is there, it's definitely very useful. I would definitely recommend at least 1 week, if not 2 weeks. If it's longer, that's great. But generally speaking, the longer the return policy is on a camera, the more you're going to have to pay for it. So there's a bit of trade-off, but I definitely would not recommend anything under 3 days because you're going to get that camera and then you really have to get out there and use it. I definitely have purchased equipment in which when it came and I tested out the equipment, it was not as good as what was stated on the website, and I did return it. So that's something that is definitely possible. If you do want to buy new because you are going to be committed to the camera system, I don't really think that's a bad idea. But when it comes time to actually go sell your camera equipment, just understand that you're not going to get as much money back for it because you bought it new, because there's just not going to be a lot of people looking for an older system like the X-T20. That is it for me on this video. If you have any questions, please let me know. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.